Welcome back. Today we're going to learn how to paint eyes for a puppet. Now, eyes for a puppet can be made out of pretty much anything, but most eyes that I see are made out of plastic or wood. I think this is my 4th video on some sort of topic around eyes for puppets. Be sure to check each one of them out because they cover something different. So it's pretty obvious why you would paint a wooden eye because of the way that it looks. In some of my other videos, I show how to cast eyes out of plastic. And some people ask, why not just use the white of the plastic? The thing about some plastics is they can get discolored over time. So it's always good to give it a nice good coat of paint. And most people just use white spray paint and paint the eyes white. And in most cases, that's totally fine. But another thing I like to do is to use other colors to give it a nice little stipple effect. There's a couple of reasons why people do this. First of all, for film use. If you've ever used puppets in a professional film setting, one thing the camera people would notice if you had pure white eyes is that it's kind of hard to focus on. Cameras have a hard time focusing on pure white. Also, it can throw off the white balance of the camera. White balance is a special camera setting for setting the coloring, which is kind of goes off of the color white. That's kind of a layman explanation that I just made up off the top of my head. That's why you'll notice any type of professional puppets used in TV and film will have eyes like that. Though it's the kind of thing that kind of barely ever gets noticed unless it's a super close-up of a puppet. But it makes a big difference in filming. But there's another great benefit to it as well. If you're someone that uses their puppets for live shows a lot, you know that sometimes the puppets can get kind of tossed around. And if an eye was to get scratched or to get scuffed, it's not as near as noticeable if you paint your eyes like this. That stippling effect can kind of hide small scratches and scuffs. With a pure white eye, it would stick out like a sore thumb. And the technique for doing it is pretty simple. I just use spray paint. And you have to use spray paint in a well-ventilated area. First thing I do is I paint the eyes white, and then I use another color from a little bit further away to kind of get the effect that I want. If it ends up being a little bit too dark, I just go back in with the white again and spritz a little bit more on top, and then that's usually enough. But what color should you use? The truth is you can kind of use whatever you want, but just kind of put some thought into it before you make the decision. Black will work for pretty much any situation, and it's something most people will have anyway for painting arm rods. But depending on the color of the puppet, I like to use other things sometimes. Like if I make a yellow puppet, I like to use purple to do that spritz. Because purple is a contrasting color on the color wheel to yellow, so it kind of, I feel, gives it a little bit more depth. But one of the most common ones that people use is a blue. I think most people would recommend using like a baby blue and spritzing on it lightly, but I like to do a couple layers of each to kind of give it, again, I feel like it gives it a little bit more depth, but that's just me. This will work with any type of eyes, whether they're eyes with a flat bottom or even spherical eyes. Now, before you paint these eyes, you're gonna wanna give them a light sand first. That's whether it's made out of wood or if it's made out of plastic, or probably pretty much any other material too. I like to use a 150 grit sandpaper for this. I find that that's rough enough to grab the paint really well, but also not too tough that it won't leave gouges and big scratches on the eyes. If there's big scratches, they might still show up after painting. Now for painting, I like to make a little stand for the eyes. If it's these round eyes, I take a little piece of wood and I put 2 screws or nails through it just like this, so that I have a nice little holder so I can paint all the way around these eyes and not have to get paint on my fingers or anything like that. It works really well. And for flat eyes, I just use a little piece of wood. But one thing I found is that if I have the eyes flat on the wood like this and then paint them, for some reason the bottom edges all the way around the circumference don't seem to get covered with paint as well. I think the pressure of the aerosol coming out just kind of deflects off of the bottom and just doesn't hit those bottom edges. So one thing I found, I usually use bottle caps, but I can't find them now, so I just cut these little discs out of PVC pipe like this. And I just set them on that and then paint them, and I find that I get a really good even coat then. So that's what I'm going to do today. So first you want to give it a coat with that white. Especially with the wooden balls, make sure you give them a nice good coating. It might take 2 or 3 even. Today I think I'm going to use the purple to do the spritzing. Make sure you shake the can really well too. So what I do is I hold this can pretty far away, about like this, and I give it a little spritz. I never hold it down. I always kind of just spritz in different places all the way around. you can see, I did way too much. Even if I do too much, I at least want it to be kind of evenly too much. So that way when I come back in with the white, it'll be even again. So now I'll go back in with the white. And it's starting to spit a little bit, and I actually kind of like it when it does that, because it gives it a little bit more texture, I feel. It doesn't make it look too perfect or too airbrush looking. I think I will actually go in with a little bit of black too. Oh yeah, look at that. When you hit the spray paint like this, just kind of keep spritzing it. Sometimes it'll spit, and you can probably see some of those spots on the eye. I actually like that a lot. I think it gives it a little bit more texture and makes it look a little bit more dynamic. Now I'm going to try to give it one more last overall spritz with the white, and then we'll let it dry and it should be done. That looks good to me. I really like that this time I used a little bit of black and a little bit of purple. It kind of has this purple haze to it and that little bit of grayness, which I think is just gonna make these eyes pop on a character. So now we just have to let that dry for now. I'm gonna let it dry overnight. We're gonna take a closer look at it again tomorrow. See you then. All right, it's tomorrow, so let's see what we have. These turned out really nice. It's this is a little bit more subtle. Sometimes I do it a little bit more extreme. You can see the difference between these eyes that I did here. You'll also recognize these eyes from the logo of our podcast, Puppeteers. And if you haven't checked it out yet, don't miss out. We talk to a lot of amazing puppeteers. Even if you don't recognize the name of the puppeteer, there's so much value listening to what other puppeteers have gone through in their careers. You'll gain a wealth of knowledge. And there's a lot more episodes to come. But anyway, you can see in this one I went a little bit darker with this. I used much more black. Part of why I did that is because I knew it was going to be for a digital logo. I felt like it made it look a little bit more real, like you could actually like touch it. But for a puppet, these are so great. All right, check these out. Oh man, they just look so slick. I'm going to put another close-up of these as well in case the white balance doesn't work out too well, but I'll tell you, in person, these just look super slick. Now this has a little bit more texture. That's the one thing about using these kind of wooden eyes is that they, sometimes they just have a little bit more texture in general. What I have done in the past is coated them with the same plastic that I used to coat these eyes with. It's just really time consuming. And I have also cast eyes this size before too, but I really like the wood as well. It's pretty light, it's really easy to screw into, and you can just buy them off the shelf, which is really nice. But with this paint job, they look pretty slick, and some of that organicness of the wood kind of adds to this kind of a texture anyway, so I really like it. But really happy with how those turned out. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this little tip. I know it's kind of a strange video to do on its own, painting eyes, but I was afraid a detail like this can sometimes be easily overlooked in the context of a larger build video. So I think it kind of works well as a standalone. But if you like this channel and you want to see more videos, the best way to support is by using the patterns on my website. Purchasing one of the ones for sale really helps the channel a lot. That's the best way to support it. Even if you're using a bunch of the free ones as well and sharing them with friends and posting pictures of what you're building and tagging me in it, because I love seeing what you guys are working on. A whole bunch of people have been tagging me on Twitter and Instagram with the builds that they've been doing inspired by this channel. I love seeing what you guys are up to, so please tag me in process photos, in your puppet builds, and even in performance things, especially if you're working with students or your own kids. I may even feature it on the channel or retweet it. Well, that's it for now. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.